Hello and welcome to Unleashed. You can find more about Unleashed at umbrex.com. That's umbrex.com/unleashed. You can also sign up for the weekly email for the show. I'm your host, Will Bachman, and I'm delighted to be here today with River Tompkins, who is a high school student who has started his own consulting practice, and I'm interested to hear about it. River, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Very excited to share my story and hear a little bit about yours.
So, River, how old are you right now?
I'm 17, living in Austin, and I'm a senior right now in high school, going to Acton
Senior.
Academy.
All right. And you have started your own consulting practice. If you're comfortable sharing, can you tell us what your gross revenues are to date?
Yeah, it's about $10,000 with five different clients.
Not bad. All right. Not bad for a high school student starting his own consulting practice. Tell us a little bit about the type of services that you provide.
Yeah, so I'd say it's very unconventional in that I'm working in the education space and more so the experimental education space. So not just, public schools, but innovative schools that are taking a different approach to learning. And so I'm working with school owners to help implement systems and train teachers.
When you say implement systems, what specific systems have you been helping to implement?
Yeah, so the first couple of clients I had were a group of schools in Florida. I went down to Florida for 2 weeks and spent a couple of days at four different schools. So we went Monday, Tuesday to Miami School, Thursday, Friday, Fort Lauderdale. So four schools, 2 weeks. And it was very variable, differed a lot, but I would work on instituting, say, a student government in the Miami school, right? Kind of showing the kids how a student government would look, how student run discussions would be modeled. And then, you move to Fort Lauderdale, and there I talked about how to institute accountability inside of a school, like learner driven accountability.
Okay. So was this sort of a IT driven thing? You were implementing a IT system or more giving a more of a kind of a change management, explaining how to use the system?
Exactly. More of an explaining how to use it. So I've been at a school called Acton Academy for 10 years now, which
Okay.
is very learner driven, off the beaten path education. And so I have a lot of experience. I've been here since second grade and I'm now a senior. So I've lived these systems, I've understood them, built them. And now I'm going to other schools much younger and helping share what I've learned from my experience.
Amazing. A lot of consultants are asking me all the time, hey, how do I go and find clients? So I'd love to hear your story. How did these clients find out about you? How did you get these projects?
Yeah. I think it's all about putting myself out there. I emailed a bunch of schools in Florida because I originally I wanted to spend time there, see what they were doing, maybe even get a teaching job there. And they came back with the idea of having me visit for a couple of days, consult. So I didn't go in with the intention of consulting because this was my first project. And then they came back with that. I had such a good experience that now I seek out clients with the primary goal of consulting.
And how do you find clients that are using this particular system?
For me, it's a little lucky, like it's not very applicable to the general masses since I've been going to Acton Academy for 10 years, right? I have that experience and now I'm targeting schools in the Acton Academy domain.
Ah, okay.
So
So
it's
so
a lot of
Act
thinking.
so Acton Academy is sort of an umbrella where individual schools participate in it. Is that kind of how it works?
Exactly, a school network.
School network. Okay. So you're targeting other schools in the Acton Academy network.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it's a very young network, probably been around for 11 or 12 years. Since I joined it so early, there's a very, very small group of people that joined in elementary and have graduated or are seniors. So I'm
Ah,
in a very, very niche group where, you could have an adult who went to went to a nice school, got a PhD in teaching, but you could argue I have more experience in this educational system than they do.
interesting. Okay. So you've been helping explain different aspects of it. And how did you go about? kind of getting a contract in place and getting set up to be paid and negotiating your rates? Tell us any stories from that.
Yeah, so this was all done over email, and the basis was that all traveling and living expenses would be covered to Florida, right? So, it was planes, hotels, food, transportation, all of that. And then on top of that, I asked for a consulting fee. Originally, I asked them to do a pay what you want fee, which I guess was a little naive, but then they encouraged me to just, give a flat out number.
All right. I love that. Okay. So that's one legitimate approach to pricing is what do you think is fair? And they came back, no, give us a number.
Exactly.
Um, and so tell us a little bit more about the this particular technology and approach with Acton Academy. What that tell us how it's different than a standard school.
I think the number one thing, and there's many, many podcasts. In fact, there was an Acton owner who was on a Jordan Peterson podcast. It's a movement that's growing very fast, but it's very learner driven. The idea is what happens when the teacher, or we call them guides, when a guide takes a step back and lets the learner lead, seeing the progress that they can make, the systems that they make. So it's a very independent, learner driven school.
Hmm. Amazing. How are you thinking about growing your practice now and expanding this even further?
Yeah, to me, this is not the ultimate goal. I don't see my career being in education, but I think I have a very, very special opportunity right now to not only share what I think is an amazing school model, but travel around the world, meet different people while getting to work. So I plan to continue uh, working with different Actons this year as well as next year, and then probably go to college after that.
Okay, amazing. Now, are you, in terms of your service lines, are you currently doing it fully bespoke, or are you thinking about coming up with more sort of some defined, almost productized models? Like I can give you the student government model. I can give you I don't know, the the math department model, or I can give you the extracurricular kind of presentation. How are you thinking about developing your productized service offerings?
So I definitely offer a guaranteed parent speech almost. So I give a presentation to all the parents of the school for every single school that I go to. And this is usually a 10 to 15-minute talk about my journey through Acton, how it's helped me, why your kids should be in it, all of this stuff. And then usually that's followed by a Q&A. So that's standard for every single school that I go to. And then after that, it's incredibly variable because you have schools that one of the schools I went to, they're in their second year of operation versus one is in their sixth. So
Hmm.
there are different points. They have a different age of student, different amount of staff. So it's very variable.
Hmm. All right. There's probably a lot of different directions you could take it. I could imagine you could offer some sort of productized diagnostic, right? Like, hey, and it could even be a different maturity models. I'll come in and do a structured diagnostic where, which would involve perhaps, interviewing all of the teachers or the guides and checking sort of their level of familiarity and to what degree they're using all the tools and talking to some of the students, talking to the parents, and sort of getting people's familiarity with the tools or using it to its full potential. And then you could come back to the school and say, hey, here's the output of your diagnostic. You're fully mature on this one dimension, but there's these other places where there's some gaps and you're not doing the full Acton Academy approach. And so that could then lead into some additional follow-on work to say, oh, well, help us on row numbers 3 and 4. We want to get, fully mature on those dimensions.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, making such an abstract concept so tangible. Like, what would you say are some best practices for creating a framework? Because right now I don't have one.
Well, you want to first break it down to a range of dimensions, right? Um, that are not one or two. but are not 50, some manageable number. So it's good to group things into groups of, 4 or 5, 3 to 7 kind of groupings. So just tell me 2 minutes more about is an Acton school, is it in person? Just how is it run? Like, just tell me a little bit more about it, and then I'll give you some ideas for the groupings.
Absolutely. So, yes, it's in person, but very, very small class sizes, right? Elementaries can range from 20 to 40 kids, in some cases 10 to 40, and
Oh,
this would span grades 1 through 5. So it's old kids, young kids, all in the same classroom. They're
uh-huh.
all there. And that's the same for middle school. You have sixth graders and in eighth grade, they're in the same classroom. So while it's all in person, the actual learning is done online through programs like Khan Academy, Newsela. So you're all in the same space, but working on a computer for your core curriculars like math and reading.
Okay. So kids are in a space together, but each one has their own computer, and one kid is working on Khan Academy level 72, and someone else could be doing Khan Academy, 31. They're going to go at their own pace. Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. One of the core ideas is some people are going to be faster, some people are going to be slower. You shouldn't necessarily have to, hold yourself back or, try and rush forward and skip over building blocks just because, you're being pushed along with everyone else, but instead going at your own pace.
Okay. In addition to the Khan Academy type stuff and similar programs, which are, if not linear, at least sort of defined, you mentioned that there's also some sort of project work that people do and you sort of do more of a learn by doing. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. So you got it exactly right. So the first half of the day is those, individual studies. We're doing math, we're doing reading, and the second half is this more project based. You could kind of say electives. This may be science, engineering, real world skills. It changes every single month,
Yeah.
but then that would be more off computers, more interactive.
Okay. And is there some part of the day where more older kids are mentoring the younger kids? Is that sort of structured into the day?
Yeah, that's encouraged through leadership because again, the teacher is backing off. They're not having the largest impact. So who's gonna show those younger kids the right way to do it? Who's gonna hold the younger kids accountable, kind of get them up to speed? Ideally, it's the older kids, and then that's where they're learning how to lead, like in a real situation, instead of the first time you're a leader is when you're 35 years old. You're getting leading experience while you're in elementary or middle school.
What about any kind of extracurricular activities? Are kids doing that in high school or middle school other than just academic type stuff?
I think almost all of that is independent of the school.
Okay.
Being small, it's not really going to offer a ton of sports teams or like academic societies, things like that. So
All
it's
right.
often outside of the school.
All right. Okay. So just based on that, some of the dimensions might be something like, okay, number one, mentoring. These are not necessarily in the order I do them. So I'm just off the top of my head. One dimension might be mentoring, student to student mentoring. That might be one dimension that you diagnose on. Another one might be the mentoring between the guide and the students. So evaluate that. Another dimension might be looking at academic progression or academic engagement on the more defined platforms like Khan Academy. Another dimension might be the more open ended exploratory research programs, projects that students do. So that's kind of four things off the top of my head that feel somewhat MECE. So not perfectly, but MECE is a consulting term that stands for mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. So you're trying to capture all aspects of it. That's collectively exhaustive. You're exhaustive, you're covering everything, but you want to have categories that are mutually exclusive among that, right? So it's not perfectly, but the guides interactions with the students that feels distinct from the students' interactions with the other students, right? There might be another dimension I didn't cover. It would be like parent involvement. If there's some kind of thing where parents come in and talk about their careers or whatever, or some parents homework might be another dimension if there is homework. So come up with 4 or 5 dimensions, and then within those dimensions have some maturity model. Like, you've been through this school, you've looked at schools doing it 2 years and schools doing it 6 years. So like, what does a fully implemented program look like? That would be your fully mature. What does sort of your novice look like, and what does your developing school look like? And then say, have some sort of objective criteria. If you're at the developing stage, at the 2 or to 3 year point, what are some things that you would use to describe those schools? Versus at the fully mature program level, like your school, what does that look like? Describe it. And then as you go in, you could say, all right, we're going to look at you across these different 6 dimensions, and we have criteria. Okay, well, you check a couple of the boxes in the novice, you check a couple more in the developing, you check maybe 1 in the mature category. So maybe we'd say you're developing, mostly in the developing category. Okay, and here's some gaps. Here's some things you could work on. So you can develop this nice diagnostic guide. Umbrex has a whole bunch of these diagnostic guides, and you can look at them on our umbrex.com/resources page. We have like a supply chain diagnostics, a branding diagnostics, all these different ones. You could take a look at those as a model. A diagnostic is a very nice sort of entry point for consultants, because you can do it usually pretty quickly, helps identify problems that the client wasn't even aware of, or identify opportunities the client was not aware of, and then they might ask you for help on addressing one of them. So you can do a diagnostic in some cases, for a nominal fee, a discounted fee. Some people do them for free. Some people would charge for them, but then it might lead to some follow-on work. So, and who knows, if no one's come up with one, it could become the sort of default Acton Academy school diagnostic, maturity model, right? The River Tompkins maturity model. So that's something I'd think about. And then offering some productized offerings, right? So schools, they may not they might be hard pressed to define what help that they want, but you can help them on that journey by saying, sure, I offer bespoke service, but I've made it easier for you by saying, here's some things that schools often want help on, right? Like student government, you mentioned. Okay, I can do a student government module. That's $1,000 or whatever. And for that, I'll come in, I'll give a talk, I will coach one-on-one the sort of student government elected president for 6 months. I'll meet with them for half an hour every week or something and give them some coaching on how to do it. And I'll talk to the parents about it. Whatever. You come up with what that offering looks like. And then they say, yeah, we want student government. Okay, great. Boom. We'll take that.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of potential for sure, because there really is no set, this is how you do it. This is I don't know the right word here, but there's a lot of potential.
All right. Fantastic. So this was fantastic speaking with you. And, then beyond just this very specific niche, as you get experience working with organizations and institutions, you could think about expanding beyond your deep area of expertise. Definitely want to leverage that to really build up some scale. And then if you wanted to keep going further than that, you could think about, expanding beyond even the Acton Academy umbrella. How can listeners find you? Let's say there's a Acton Academy school out there that hears the episode and says, oh, we need the River Tompkins treatment. How can they get in touch?
They can email that name right there, rivertompkins1@gmail.com.
All right, there you have it. And we'll put that link in the show notes. All right, River, this was really a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.